Okay, this is your 11th, I believe, XNA game development tutorial. And in this tutorial we're going to go over access modifiers. And what do I mean by access modifier is right here where it says public, that is an access modifier. And that's what I'm going to be explaining in this tutorial, and you guys are going to be pros at it by the end of it. So, we're going to do a clean start here by deleting all that and all that and this and that. So right now all we have is this main class right here, program, and remember this static void main is the function that gets run at the very beginning, and your program is going to start and end in this function. So once it reaches the end right here, your program's done. And we also have another class that we created ourselves that's called human, and we're going to create a third class, and we're just going to call it some other class just to be lazy. And that completes it for us. Okay, so there's two different access modifiers that I'm going to show you in this tutorial. One of them is right here where it says public, and the other one is going to be private. Or actually, you can't put it in there, but if we change this private, that's the other one. But you're always gonna, these constructor functions right here, you're always gonna want them to be public. Okay, and so what public means is that you can run this function outside of the class. And so if we wanted, let's create a new function. Now we had public void walk. So you can access this function outside the class and it does not return anything. And what I mean by access it outside the class is when you're trying to use it outside this code right here, you can do that because it's public. So if we create a human gym equals new human, there's no parameters, and since this right here, see how it's public, we can do gym dot and right there walk. And that means you can use it outside of the function, or outside the class, I mean. And so that's going to work. No errors. But now we're going to set it to private. And now what private means is that you can only run this function when you're working right in this code right here. So if we say gym dot, and now it's not on the list anymore because we cannot access it. And if we try to write it out anyway, it's going to give us an error because that is private. And now if you don't have any of this, say it's just void walk, no public, no private, it's still going to be private. By default, it's private. So that's going to give us an error. So what we want is that to be public. And now this is the exact same thing for variables. So remember how we had string, before I do that, so let's make this private again. And now see, when you try to do it, say this, and remember when we say this, what it means is we're accessing gym. Say this function right here, it's going to run it from gym, the instance of gym, because we're saying this dot, and you can do it. You see how it came up with walk right there? And that's because we're inside the class, so you can run that function inside the class. And you don't have to put this, you can also just put walk, and that'll work the same way. And you can do it as well if it's public. So you can say walk, that's right there, and it'll run the code inside there. Alright, So now, what I was saying before is that this is the same thing for variables. And remember how I said if you don't put anything in front of it, it's going to be private. So if we say gym dot, and there's no height, can't access height. In order to access it, you have to put public there. And now when we do gym dot height, it's right there. And we could set it equal to something or whatever. And I don't know, I was gonna use this class to kind of show you guys, I guess. Like, we could also create a human inside this class. Jimmy, this new human. I could say Jimmy dot, and see, it's public, so you can access it from any other class. And it has to be inside the namespace, the same class inside the same namespace. I haven't gone over namespaces yet, but I'll get to that. But just remember, it has to be inside this namespace. Alright. So you can do that if it's public. If it's private, you can't do that. So we really don't need this class. I don't know why I went and made that. But anyway, and then so what you're usually going to want to do with accessing variables is, remember how we created a property and then we want it to be an int, say height, and we always want this public because that's the whole point of this property right here, is to either set this equal to something or to retrieve it and use it some way. And so you always want to be able to access that outside the class. And of course, if it's private, you can always use it inside the class. So we're inside this human, so we can use everything no matter what, no matter where we are, what function. And so that's the basics of modifiers. In the next tutorial, I'm going to be going over what static means, this right here. So stay tuned, don't forget to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next tutorial.